Captain Marcus Webb stood in the center of the Zereth Imperial Palace courtyard and felt very small. The palace was made of crystal that looked like it had grown from the ground itself, towering high above his head. The walls caught the light and threw it in 1,000 directions, creating rainbows that made his eyes hurt if he looked too long. This was his job. He was humanity's first official envoy to the Zereth Empire. 6 months of training had prepared him for this moment. 6 months of learning their language, studying their customs, and understanding their way of thinking. But nothing had truly prepared him for how alien everything felt. The Zereth moved through the courtyard like living crystals. Their bodies were not flesh like humans. They were solid structures of compressed minerals and something that looked almost like glass, yet they moved with perfect grace. Their eyes were the strangest part. They had no pupils or irises. Instead, their entire eyes seemed to be a swirling pattern of light and color that changed as they thought. Marcus wore the formal diplomatic suit that Earth had provided. It was decorated with the colors of human nations. Blue, red, and white stripes ran down his sides. He felt overdressed and clumsy next to the elegant Zereth, who seemed to need no clothing at all. "Captain Webb," a voice called out. Marcus turned to see a Zereth official approaching. Her name was Priestess Mara, and she was responsible for overseeing the human delegation. "The princess arrives soon. You will stand here and greet her with respect. You will bow when she approaches. You will not speak unless she speaks to you first. Do you understand these things?" Marcus nodded. He had studied this protocol for weeks. "I understand, Priestess Mara." The official examined him with those swirling eyes. He could see disappointment in her gaze. The Zereth thought humans were primitive. They had technology that made Earth's greatest achievements look like children's toys. To them, humans were curiosities. Interesting perhaps, but ultimately inferior. The courtyard grew quiet. Servants moved about, preparing the area for the princess's arrival. Marcus noticed something that made him uncomfortable. The usual palace guards were not in their normal positions. He had studied the palace layout carefully. He knew where they should be. But today, several groups were missing. Also, there were servants in the upper galleries who did not belong there. Marcus had learned to read faces and body language in his military career. These people were nervous. Their movements were careful and controlled. They were trying not to be noticed. Marcus's heart began to beat faster. Something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones. The feeling came from deep in his brain, the part of humans that evolved over millions of years to sense danger. It was one of the few advantages humans had over the Zereth. While they were more logical and advanced, humans could still feel things that logic could not explain. Princess Lyra entered the courtyard, and every Zereth present turned to face her. She was younger than Marcus had expected, perhaps only 20 or so in Earth years. She was also more beautiful than the images had shown. Her crystalline body was clearer and more complex than the other Zereth. Intricate patterns ran through her like frozen lightning. When she moved, the light danced across her form. She wore formal dress. Thin bands of metal wrapped around her shoulders and waist. Her eyes held the same swirling patterns as other Zereth, but within them, Marcus saw something different. Curiosity, interest. She was genuinely happy to be here. The princess walked slowly through the courtyard, and the ceremony began. Ancient words were spoken in the Zereth language. Marcus had learned enough to understand some of it. "Welcome," they said. "Honor to the Earth delegation. Respect to the first human ambassadors." Marcus bowed as he had been taught. The princess turned to look at him, and her swirling eyes fixed on his face. For a moment, they simply looked at each other. Human and Zereth. Two different species from two different worlds. Then Marcus heard something. A sound from above. Not loud, but distinctive. The sound of something large shifting. The sound of weight being released. He looked up. The massive crystal chandelier above them was falling. It had been carefully rigged to fall directly over the spot where Princess Lyra now stood. It was huge, perhaps 8 feet across, made of countless razor-sharp crystal pieces. It would kill her. It would kill everyone in the immediate area. There was no time to think. There was no time to analyze or plan. Human instinct took over. Marcus moved faster than he had ever moved in his life. He crossed the distance between himself and the princess in 2 quick steps. He grabbed her shoulders and pushed her sideways, throwing his own body into the space where she had been standing. The chandelier came down like a meteor. The impact was immediate and total. Sharp crystal shards cut through Marcus's skin like daggers. He felt pain explode through his entire body. His shoulder was torn open. Crystal drove through his ribs. His leg was cut deeply. Blood poured from 100 wounds. He screamed. He could not help it. The pain was too great to hold inside. He hit the ground hard, and the world became a blur of sound and sensation. Screaming filled the courtyard. Not just from him. The Zirith were calling out in alarm. Guards were shouting. Something large had happened. Something impossible. Through the pain, Marcus felt cold. His blood was pooling beneath him. He had been hit badly. Really badly. The kind of injury that humans did not often survive. His vision was starting to go dark around the edges, but before the darkness took him, he felt something touch his face. A hand. A crystalline hand, smooth and cool. Princess Lyra was kneeling beside him, her eyes swirling with colors he had never seen before. Colors that looked almost like they were crying. Her mouth was moving, speaking words, but Marcus could not hear them over the ringing in his ears. Then the Zirith medical teams arrived, and everything became confused and painful. They lifted him onto something flat and hard. They were shouting things at each other in their language. Voices filled with alarm and something else. Something that might have been respect. As they carry him away, Marcus caught one last glimpse of Princess Lyra. She was standing in the middle of the courtyard, surrounded by Zirith officials who were all speaking urgently. Her eyes never left Marcus's face. He had just made first contact with an alien princess in the most human way possible. He had saved her life by putting his own in danger. And in that moment, everything between their 2 species was about to change forever. The medical chamber smelled like nothing Marcus had ever experienced before. There was no antiseptic smell or clean hospital scent. Instead, there was something sharp and metallic, something that made his sinuses burn. The light in the room came from the walls themselves, a soft blue glow that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Marcus lay on a platform that was neither hard nor soft. It felt like lying on warm water that never moved. Medical instruments floated around him, tiny things that looked like insects made of light. They buzzed and moved with purpose, scanning his body, examining his wounds. Zirith doctors moved around him with precision and efficiency. They communicated with each other through a series of tones and harmonic sounds. No words were spoken. They seemed to communicate through a kind of telepathy or vibration that Marcus could not understand. Occasionally, they would stop and examine some part of his body with great interest. "This cardiovascular system is remarkable," one of the doctors said in the Zirith language. Her voice was like wind chimes. "The heart pumps continuously. The blood circulates with incredible efficiency. How does such a primitive creature survive?" Another doctor moved to examine Marcus's leg. The wound there was deep. Crystal had cut straight through muscle and nearly reached bone. "The soft tissue repair mechanisms are surprising. This one shows no signs of systemic shock, despite the volume of blood loss. The body is resisting death with significant force." Marcus tried to move, but his body would not obey. He was paralyzed, either by the injuries or by whatever medical technology they had put him in. He could see everything and hear everything, but he could not move or speak clearly. Time passed in strange ways. Sometimes it felt like hours. Sometimes it felt like minutes. The blue light never changed. The doctors came and went. They treated his wounds with technologies that made no sense. A beam of light would touch his skin, and he would feel burning pain. Then the pain would fade, and the wound would be smaller. Days passed, or what felt like days. Marcus began to lose track of time. On what he thought was the fourth day, someone new entered the medical chamber. Marcus recognized her immediately. Princess Lyra. She moved with the same grace as all Zereth, but something about her was different. She came alone, without guards or servants. She walked to the platform where Marcus lay and looked down at him with those swirling eyes. For a long moment she said nothing. "Can you hear me?" she asked in English. Her accent was strange, but her words were clear. Marcus tried to speak. His throat was dry and damaged, but he managed one word. "Yes." The princess made a sound that might have been satisfaction. "I am told you will survive. The doctors did not believe you would. They said your species was too fragile. Boss. They said your body could not tolerate such injuries. But you are alive." She reached down and touched his hand. Her crystalline fingers were cool against his skin. "Why did you do it? My security could have protected me. Why did you put yourself in danger for someone you do not know?" Marcus wanted to answer. He wanted to explain that it was instinct, that humans were built to protect others, that sacrifice was part of what made them human. But the words were hard to form. "You were worth saving," he managed to say. Something changed in the princess's eyes. The colors swirled faster, creating new patterns. "I do not understand this. We are not the same species. I am superior in every measurable way. You risked death for me. This is not logical." "No," Marcus agreed. "It is not logical. It is human." The princess visited him again the next day, and the day after that. Each time she came, she asked him questions. Questions about Earth, about humans, about why he had done what he did. Marcus answered as best he could, his voice growing stronger each day. He told her about Earth, about how it was a harsh place compared to the Zereth homeworld, about how humans evolved on a planet that tried to kill them. Predators hunted them. The weather could destroy them. Food was difficult to find. The very gravity of Earth was stronger than what the Zereth lived with. Humans had to be tough to survive. "We learned to work together," Marcus explained during one of her visits. "Alone, a human is weak. But together, we are strong. We protect each other. We die for each other. It is not logic. It is survival." The princess seemed puzzled. "But you are still weak. Even together. Our technology is superior. Our bodies are stronger. Our minds can process information faster than yours." "Maybe," Marcus said. "But we do not give up. We keep fighting even when we know we cannot win. We care about things beyond ourselves. We love. We sacrifice. These things make us strong in ways your technology cannot measure." The medical team eventually cleared Marcus to leave the floating bed. He was still injured. His wounds had been treated, but his body was not fully healed. Walking was difficult. Pain shot through his leg with each step. But he could move. The princess was waiting for him in the corridor outside the medical chamber. She stood in a shaft of natural light that came through the crystal walls. The light danced across her body, creating patterns of impossible beauty. "You saved my life," she said simply. "This means something in your culture, yes?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, it means something. It means we are connected now." "Then let me show you my world," Princess Lyra said. "Let me show you the Zereth Empire." As they walked through the crystal corridors of the palace, Marcus began to realize something important. The assassination attempt had done more than just put the princess in danger. It had created something new, a bridge between two species. A moment where the logic of the Zereth had been broken by the instinct of a human dot, and perhaps, Marcus thought, that was exactly what needed to happen, because as Lyra showed him the wonders of the Zereth Empire, as she explained their technology and their culture, Marcus began to understand that there was a hunger in her world, a hunger for something that logic could not provide. The Zereth had advanced so far that they had left behind the things that made them feel alive. And Marcus, a primitive human from a harsh world, might just be the answer to that hunger. Weeks passed. Marcus's body healed in ways that surprised even the Zereth doctors. His wounds closed. His strength returned. But more importantly, something changed in how the Zereth looked at him. He was no longer just a curiosity. He was becoming something else. A symbol. A challenge to everything they thought they understood about inferior species. Princess Lyra spent more and more time with him. She showed him the Zereth Empire from places that few humans had ever seen. She took him to the great libraries, where knowledge was stored in forms that made Marcus's head hurt to understand. She showed him gardens where plants grew in patterns that seemed almost artistic. She introduced him to other Zereth, though many looked at him with something that was not quite respect, but was no longer simple dismissal. During one afternoon in the palace gardens, Marcus sat beside a fountain that bubbled with clear liquid that was not water. The gardens were at the top of the palace, high enough that he could see the crystalline towers of the Zereth cities spread out below. "Tell me about love," Princess Lyra said suddenly. She sat beside him, her crystalline body catching the light in new ways. Marcus was startled by the question. "What do you mean?" "I have been studying human history," she explained. "Your species seems to place great importance on something you call love. You write poetry about it. You wage wars because of it. You die for it. I do not understand why an emotion would be so important." Marcus thought for a moment. "It is hard to explain. Love is. It is a connection between people. It makes you care about someone else's life more than your own. It makes you want to protect them. It makes you want to be near them. It makes everything else seem less important." The princess's eyes swirled with colors he had not seen before. "But this is not logical. It is inefficient. If you care about someone else more than yourself, you become weak. You become vulnerable." "Yes," Marcus agreed. "We do become vulnerable. But we also become stronger in different ways. When you love someone, you are willing to do things you never thought you could do. You are willing to sacrifice. You are willing to face things that scare you. Love makes humans do incredible things. Like saving me?" Lyra asked. Marcus looked at her then. Really looked at her. She was beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with logic or physical structure. There was something in her curiosity, in the way she asked questions, in the way she seemed to genuinely want to understand humanity. There was something there that pulled at something deep inside him. "Yes," he said. "Like saving you." The princess turned away, looking out across the city. "I was told that humans are slaves to their emotions. That our way is better because we think rather than feel. But since you saved my life, I have been thinking. Feeling is not the opposite of thinking. They are different things. You think and feel at the same time." "We do," Marcus confirmed. "I think the Zereth have forgotten how to feel," Lyra said quietly. "We have been so focused on becoming perfect that we have lost something important." Over the following weeks, Marcus told her stories. Stories of Earth. Stories of humans who had done incredible things. He told her about soldiers who threw themselves on explosives to save their friends. He told her about parents who worked until their bodies broke to feed their children. He told her about ordinary people who stood up to powerful enemies because they knew something was wrong. He told her about a time on Earth when people had fought and died to free others from slavery. He told her about the first humans to explore the ocean, the first to fly, the first to reach space. Every story was about humans doing the impossible because they believed in something. Why? Lyra asked after one particularly long story. Why do humans keep trying when they fail? Because giving up is worse than failing, Marcus said. Because if you do not try, then nothing will change. And sometimes, change is worth dying for. The political situation in the Zirith Empire was changing too. News of the assassination attempt had spread. News of how a primitive human had saved the princess's life had spread even further. Some Zirith were angry. They saw it as proof that security had failed them. Others were fascinated. They began to study the human delegate more carefully. Then, one evening, Marcus was summoned to meet with Emperor Zek, the ruler of the entire Zirith Empire. The Emperor's chamber was enormous. The walls were made of the clearest crystal Marcus had ever seen. The floor was perfectly smooth. The Emperor himself stood on a raised platform, and he was more impressive than any Zirith Marcus had yet encountered. "Captain Marcus Webb," the Emperor said, and his voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "You saved my daughter's life. The Zirith Empire is in your debt." Marcus bowed, as was proper. "I did what I had to do, sir. I would do it again." "That is precisely what interests me," the Emperor said. He came down from his platform and walked toward Marcus. His eyes swirled with complex patterns. Most beings act from self-interest. They preserve themselves first. But you did not. You risked death for a stranger. Why? Marcus chose his words carefully. This was the moment that would define everything that came after. Because some things are worth more than safety. Because my people learned long ago that honor and loyalty matter. Because protecting those who cannot protect themselves is what makes us human. The Emperor was quiet for a very long time. "On Earth you have wars, yes? You have violence and suffering. Yet you also have this capacity for sacrifice. This is a contradiction." "Yes, sir," Marcus agreed. "We are not perfect. We fight each other. We make terrible mistakes. But we also try to do better. We believe that people matter. We believe that life should be protected. Sometimes we fail, but we never stop trying." The Emperor returned to his platform. "The Zirith have conquered much. We have built great things. But perhaps we have lost something in the process. Perhaps this quality you have, this willingness to sacrifice, is more valuable than I realized." He looked down at Marcus from his great height. "You will remain here as Earth's ambassador. I will allow more contact between our peoples. And maybe, through this contact, both of our species will learn to become better than we are." As Marcus left the Emperor's chamber, he felt the weight of what had just happened. He was no longer just a survivor. He was now an official bridge between two worlds. And the bridge had been built on the foundation of one human's simple choice to save someone who deserved saving. The announcement came 3 months after Marcus's meeting with Emperor Zek. A formal alliance between Earth and the Zirith Empire would be established. Not based on military necessity or economic benefit alone, but on shared values and mutual respect. It was a historic moment. For the first time, two intelligent species were choosing to come together not as conqueror and conquered, but as equals. The Zirith Empire celebrated. But not everyone was happy. Not everyone wanted change. The purifiers still existed. They had gone underground after the first assassination attempt, but they had not disappeared. They had spent weeks planning something new. Something that would break the alliance before it could even truly begin. On a night when the palace was less heavily guarded, the purifiers made their move. They infiltrated the residential chambers where Princess Lyra slept. They came through secret passages in the crystal walls. They came armed with weapons that looked like nothing Marcus had ever seen. But Princess Lyra was not alone. Marcus had insisted on increased security despite the official peace. He slept in a chamber near hers. When the alarm sounded, he woke immediately. He found Lyra being dragged away by 3 Zereth soldiers. She was fighting, but the purifiers had weapons and training. Without thinking, Marcus grabbed the first weapon he could find, an ornamental blade from the wall, and charged. What happened next was pure instinct. Marcus had military training, but the Zereth soldiers had technology. Yet technology could be fought with speed and cunning. Marcus did not try to beat them with strength. Instead, he used his knowledge of human physics. He threw his body at them at angles they did not expect. He used his lower center of gravity to knock them off balance. He moved in ways that seemed random, but were actually calculated to confuse opponents. One purifier went down, then another. The third tried to drag the princess out of the chamber, but Marcus tackled him from behind. They crashed through the crystal wall of the chamber and fell into a water feature below. Marcus hit the water hard. Pain exploded through his healing body, but adrenaline kept him fighting. He grabbed the purifier and held him under, using every technique he had learned in combat training. The Zereth soldier struggled, but human determination was a terrible thing when focused entirely on saving someone's life. The purifier went still. Marcus pulled Lyra from the water. He was bleeding again. His old wounds had torn open. New injuries were forming. But the princess was alive and safe. The palace guards arrived moments later. What they found was a revelation. A human, wounded and exhausted, standing over fallen Zereth soldiers, protecting the princess with his own body once again. This time, literally standing between her and danger. "Secure the princess," Marcus commanded, using the tone of someone who was used to being obeyed. The guards responded automatically, moving Lyra to safety. "Get medical teams, now." As he collapsed, Marcus saw Lyra's face. Her crystalline features were sharp with fear and concern. Her eyes swirled with emotions he now understood. She cared about him. She had never said it, but he could see it written in every color of her eyes. When Marcus woke up, he was in the medical chamber again. The doctors had worked through the night to repair his body. Again, the human body was remarkable. They said, again, it seemed almost impossible that one creature could survive so much damage and keep coming back. This time, when he was well enough to leave, the Zereth Empire was transformed. The purifiers had tried to kidnap the princess and frame humans for the crime, but they had failed, and the failure had exposed their entire operation. Dozens of Zereth officials were arrested. The purifier ideology was declared illegal. The attempt to break the alliance had done the opposite. It had strengthened it. More than that, it had shown the Zereth something that their technology and logic could never teach them. The value of loyalty, the power of sacrifice, the strength that came from putting another person's safety above your own. Emperor Zek made a decision. He called Marcus to his chamber 1 week after the attack. This time, Lyra was there as well. "Captain Marcus Webb," the Emperor said formally, "you have saved my daughter's life twice. You have faced danger for our people. You have shown us something we had forgotten, the strength of the human heart. Therefore, I am offering you a place of honor in the Zereth Empire, a place at the royal court. And I am offering you something else." Marcus waited. "My daughter does not request things often," the Emperor continued, "but she has requested that you be allowed to remain here, not as a prisoner, not as ambassador merely, but as a member of the royal household. This is unprecedented. But then again, everything about you is unprecedented." Marcus looked at Lyra. She stood with perfect stillness, but her eyes swirled with colors he had learned to recognize. Hope, fear, love. I would be honored. Sir, Marcus said. Over the following weeks, Marcus was given a new role. He became a teacher, not of fighting or weapons, though some Zirith wanted to learn his combat techniques. Instead, he taught them about what it meant to be human. He taught them about history, about art, about music, about the things that made life worth living beyond survival and advancement. He told them about the choices that humans made. Not always the right choices, but choices made with feeling and passion. He showed them that imperfection was not a weakness. It was the foundation of growth. And through all of this, he grew closer to Princess Lyra. They spent time together in the gardens. They talked about the future. They talked about what would happen when humans and Zirith lived together permanently. What would change? What would stay the same? I have been thinking about what you said, Lyra told him one evening. About love. About how it makes you willing to sacrifice everything. I think I understand it now. I think I feel it. Marcus took her crystalline hand in his. It was cool and smooth and perfect. So do I, he said. I felt it the moment I pushed you out of the way of that chandelier. I just did not know what to call it until now. Lyra's eyes swirled with colors that seemed to capture the sunset. Then, what happens now? Now, Marcus said, we build something new. We build a bridge between our people. And we do it together. As they stood together in the gardens of the palace, watching the sun set over the crystalline cities of the Zirith, both of them understood something important. Two species were not coming together because they had to. They were coming together because they chose to. Because one human had saved a princess. And that princess had chosen to see the value in a primitive creature from a harsh world. Sometimes, that was all it took to change everything. The celebration filled the grand hall of the Zirith Imperial Palace. Thousands of beings had gathered from across the Empire and from Earth itself. Delegates from every human nation had made the long journey through space to witness this moment. It was history. It was the day when two species officially became one unified alliance. But more than that, it was a celebration of something personal. Something that no one had expected. Something that had grown from sacrifice and understanding. Marcus stood in a chamber off to the side of the grand hall, waiting. He wore formal clothing from Earth, but it had been modified by Zirith artisans. It was now woven with threads of crystal that caught the light. It was still human, but it was also Zirith. It was a blend of both worlds. His body carried the scars of everything that had happened. The assassination attempt, the rescue, the wounds that would never fully heal, the crystal shards that had been embedded in his body and could not be removed. They were part of him now, part of what made him the bridge between two worlds. An attendant came to him. She's ready, the attendant said. Marcus stood. He took a breath. He was nervous in a way that no combat had ever made him nervous. This was more important than any battle. This was the moment that would define his entire life. He walked into the grand hall. The crowd went silent. Thousands of voices all stopped at the same moment. Everyone turned to look at him. They watched as Marcus walked to the center of the hall. He stood there, a human among aliens, in the grandest place in all of the Zirith Empire. Then the music began. It was not music like humans created. It was a harmony of sounds that seemed to come from the very walls of the palace. It was beautiful in a way that made his throat tight, and then she entered. Princess Lyra came through the great doors, and time seemed to stop. She was beautiful in a way that no description could capture. Her crystalline body caught the light from a million angles. The light seemed to come from inside her, glowing with colors that were impossible to name. Her eyes swirled with every color that existed, and within them, Marcus could see something that made his heart stop. She was looking at him. Only at him. Everything else in the hall faded away. The crowd, the music, the ceremony, the importance of the moment. There was just Marcus and Lyra, a human and a Zirith. Two different species who had chosen to stand together. She walked toward him slowly. Every step was perfect. Every movement was graceful. But her eyes never left his face. When she reached him, she stopped. They stood facing each other. Across the space between them was more than just distance. There were years of evolution. There were the differences between their species. There was the logic of the Zirith and the emotion of humanity. There was everything that should have kept them apart. But also, there was love. Emperor Zek stepped forward. His voice filled the hall. "My daughter, Princess Lyra of the Zirith Empire, and Captain Marcus Webb of Earth, you have chosen to bind your lives together. You have chosen to be a symbol of the alliance between our peoples. Do you accept this responsibility?" Lyra answered first. I accept. I accept because Marcus has shown me that there is more to existence than logic and advancement. He has shown me that feeling, that sacrifice, that love are not weaknesses. They are strengths. They are what make life worth living. She reached out and took Marcus's hand. Her crystalline fingers were cool against his warm skin. They fit together perfectly. Marcus spoke then. I accept. I accept because Lyra has shown me that there is value in worlds beyond my own. She has shown me that my people are not alone. We were never meant to be alone. We were always meant to find others like us, to build together, to create something that could not exist in isolation. The Emperor raised his hands. Then let this union be recognized by both the Zirith Empire and the human worlds. Let this binding represent the promise of peace between our peoples. Let it represent the future that we will build together. The ceremony continued for hours. There were rituals from both species. Humans exchanged rings, symbols of commitment. The Zirith shared a harmony, a joining of consciousness that Marcus could not fully participate in, but could feel happening around him. Lyra's hand never left his. When the ceremony was finally complete, they stood together before the gathered crowd. The moment stretched out. 10,000 beings from two different species, all watching, all understanding that they were witnessing something that had never happened before and might never happen again. Then something incredible occurred. The crowd began to make a sound. Not words. A harmony. The Zirith were creating music, and the humans began to join in, singing melodies that blended with the alien harmonies. Two kinds of music, coming from two kinds of beings, merging into something beautiful. Later that night, Marcus and Lyra stood on a platform high in the palace. They could see the entire Zirith city below them, glowing with crystalline light. And above, in the darkness of space, they could see the stars. Do you see it? Lyra asked, pointing upward. Marcus looked. Among all the stars, he could see one that was bluer than the others. Smaller, further away, but unmistakable. Earth, his home world. I see it, he said. And there is mine, Lyra said, pointing to a cluster of stars that glowed with their own inner light. The Zirith homeworld, ancient and advanced, full of knowledge and beauty. They are beautiful, Lyra said, but not as beautiful as this. Not as beautiful as what we have found here. Not as beautiful as what was beautiful as what was beautiful as what we have found here. Marcus looked at her, at the way the starlight played across her crystalline form, at the way her eyes swirled with colors that seemed to contain entire universes. No, he agreed. Not as beautiful as this. They stood together, watching the two worlds that had made them who they were. Behind them, the palace glowed with the light of two species celebrating together. And around them, the entire Zirith Empire was changing, slowly understanding that strength did not come from technology or power alone. It came from the courage to be different, from the willingness to sacrifice, from the choice to stand with someone, even when logic said you should stand alone. The story of Marcus Webb and Princess Lyra would be told across galaxies. It would be told to show that peace was possible, that understanding was possible, that love was not a weakness, but the greatest strength that any being could possess. But for now, on this night, they simply stood together and watched the stars. Two beings from two worlds, holding hands, building a future that had never existed before. And somewhere in the distance, a blue planet continued to turn on its axis, unaware that one of its children had saved an alien princess with his own body, and in doing so, had changed the destiny of the entire galaxy. The revolution had not come through weapons or conquest. It had come through sacrifice. It had come through one human's simple choice to protect someone worth saving. And in the end, that was all that mattered.